Hello Glovers, Iterati here to walk you through the installation and usage of the new Vectr Beta 2. The first thing that you need to do after you download the beta off of the website is take the zip file and extract it. And you're going to have this Vectr UI folder that's left over, and that is what we're going to install as our Chrome app. So let's open up Chrome here, and let's go to the extensions. Type in Chrome extensions, or you can go through the menus if you're more comfortable with that. Make sure to enable developer mode because this is still an in development, very beta UI. And then we're going to click load unpacked extension. This will allow us to load the extension off of the hard drive. So click on your desktop, go to the folder that you just extracted and click select. And you'll see Vectr UI is now installed. So we can close out of the extensions and go back to our apps. And look here, Vectr UI the app. So real quickly, I wanted to show you, my documents doesn't have anything in it except for my Arduino, Eagle, and Eclipse folders here. So I'm going to open up Vectr UI, and the first thing that it does is it actually asks you to figure out a folder where it's going to save all of your modes and firmwares. And in this case, I'm going to create one named Vectr in my documents. Click select. And at that point, all these modes over here in your mode library and a default firmware are created. So you can see that by going over to my documents, going to modes. Again, you can see these modes over here. These can be shared however you want to share them. And then up here we have the firmwares. So if we want to preview changes that we do in the UI on our light, we have to have a firmware installed that will allow us to do that. So this default firmware, this is the one that you will install on your lights right off the bat. This comes with all of the mode library, all 8 of those modes installed in both bundles. They're basically symmetrical, no difference, but it will allow us to communicate using the UI. So let's open this default and go into the Arduino IDE and actually upload this to our lights. So in this case, what we're doing is we're taking that default one, we're uploading it to our lights. This is going to have all of the quote-unquote factory settings for Vectr on it, and enough, and everything that it needs to communicate using the user interface. So you go back to the user interface and look up here. We have a list of ports. Now I'm on a Mac, so the ports have very useful names like slab, USB to UART. On Windows, they're all just named COM12345. If you're not sure what port to use, you can actually close out of Vectr, unplug your light, reopen Vectr, and look, the ports that refer to the light, they're not listed right now. So if we plug in the light and click refresh ports, this will pop up all of the ones that actually are affected by plugging in the light. So in this case, we're going to select the slab USB to UART and click connect. At this point, our light is connected to the UI, so any changes we make in the UI are reflected on the light. To test that out, you could click on another mode in the mode library, and you'll see that that mode immediately starts to display on your light. You can then click and drag around, change some of the settings, change it to a morph, change it back to a strobe, whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. To change the timings or the number of colors or anything like that, you can use either this text field that's directly to the left of the slider, or you can actually slide the slider back and forth. If you want to change the colors, when you click on the color, your light will actually display whatever color is in there, and you're presented with this very complicated looking user interface. Now this complicated looking user interface is one of my favorite things about the new Vectr. As soon as I moved off of processing and I moved over to Chrome, I got a wealth of libraries because the internet is a very rich ground for open source tools, and this color picker is my favorite one by far. So all three of these RGB and all 3 of these HSV dots, what they allow you to do is they allow you to change sort of what this 2-dimensional map and this 1-dimensional bar do. So in this case, you can see that this bar is red, blue, green, back to red. That's the hue, that's the color wheel. So now just dragging up and down on this will move you around the color wheel. If you then wanted to change the brightness, you could go down to the V and actually change the brightness just linearly by sliding up and down. The saturation, the S, this allows you to add more white to your light. So, all the way down, your light will be white. All the way up, there will be no white. It's, single or dual channel only. And you can also do the same thing with the RGB. This is similar to the way Vector and Primer used to work. And so those are there for people who are comfortable using those sliders. Honestly, I feel like the HSV sliders are much more useful in this instance. And then also over here we have the color bank, and these allow you to pick what I consider balanced colors. One word of caution is that the colors that are displayed over here in the map or here in the bar, they don't match exactly what's shown on the light. Showing something on a screen versus showing something on an LED, they're two different beasts. So there's no way for me to really match that exactly. You just basically have to eyeball it, and you do get a fairly good idea about the color. The brightness is the one that gets a little tricky. A lot of colors will look very, very dim on screen when they're actually much brighter on the LED. So just keep that in mind as you edit your colors. And whenever you're done, you go over here and you name the mode and you can save it. So let's actually go and let's create a stretch mode. And let's just save that one as stretcher. And you see that got added to the mode bank. And also if we go back here to the modes folder, we see stretcher mode over here. So not only is it created in your mode bank, but it's created on your hard drive. This way you can upload it and share it and send it to your friends. Now say we want to make a firmware that uses that new mode. We can just drag that over to here to the bundle 1, drag a few more modes that we like over there. We'll do that one. And then there's also the second bundle. The second bundle is basically meant to be used on your fingers, since most people use on your thumbs, since most people use different presets on their thumbs and on their fingers. So in this case, I'm just going to throw the RGB and the metamorph over here on the bundle 2. We'll just call that Vector and save that firmware. Go back here to our modes, look at our firmwares, and yes, we have a Vector Inno. And if we open that up, as you can see, it's got our settings in there. It's changed the number of modes per bundle. It's changed around the bundles a little bit. I mean, you can look at this side by side with the original, and you'll see a lot of differences. So we could upload this to our light, and then all 9 other lights that we're using in our set, and voila. You have your factory modes burned on your light. No more worrying about master resetting. No more worrying about anything, basically. I feel this is the most reliable and stable way of putting modes onto an OSM right now. So that was one of the big reasons for changing this around, and I'm actually really pleased with it. The one last piece of advice I will give you is that if you have batteries in your light, you must click this disconnect button. Now, it is not recommended that you have batteries in the light that you're programming with, but if you do and you unplug the light without clicking disconnect, the button will not actually work. You're going to have to take out the batteries and put them back in. However, if there's no batteries in the light, you can just unplug it and replug it in, and it'll be back in normal mode. So just make sure you click this disconnect button if your light happens to have batteries in it, and then you can click on the light and change your modes at will. Very, very simple, very, very straightforward. If there's any questions, any problems, any advice, anything that you guys have, again, I'm always really excited to get feedback. It really helps me to make things better. So thank you guys again for using. Thank you guys for testing. I'll see you at the shows.